Greetings once again in the name of Jesus Christ. So, to begin the message, today's message, I would like to start with a question. So, usually it won't happen. I will just immediately start, or very rarely I begin my message with questions. So, to begin the message with one question, I would like to start. And what is the importance of an eye? What is an importance? What's the importance of an eye, and how much necessary it is? Just give me the answers. Don't be silent. To walk correctly, to see things clearly. Then, how much necessary it is and how much important it is in one's life. We need eyes to live our lives. Okay. Any other answers? To lead right paths, to lead. Okay. Okay. These are some reasons and some things, answers that you give. So there are some reasons and many important things to look at the importance and the necessity of the eyes that God has given us. But today, we will not see all the importance and all the necessities of an eye, because it will be taking much time and that won't be relevant for a message. So, but today we will see the main and the important thing of an eye. So there are multiple necessities and importance. Out of that, we will pick one important, very much important, the top list one, and we will look at that. So, basically, an eye is the very essential and important part of a body, right? So, eye is the everything for us. So, it is very much important. So, we value that. If some friends or any other people just unfortunately or accidentally dashes in our eyes, or through some dust or some small rocks or sand or anything, immediately what happens? Every action of a body gets dimmed, and every action and the vision gets closed, and we will get irritated with that. We won't see properly. So, without an eye in our body, we cannot see the real tangible world. So, the tangible world is that what we see around. So, people go here and there, we see that birds flying above our heads. And when we go to any zoo or any forest for trekking, anything, we will see deers and sometimes elephants, leopard crossing here and there. So, with our eyes, we see the world, and that too, a tangible world. So, we have many worlds today. That is why I was specifying and telling that tangible world, because the world is that the computer world and the technical world and the many kind of worlds have been termed in this century. So, the physical, tangible world is what we see. So, nothing to elaborate this term. So, whatever we see and whatever is real in front of us, whatever, whether living objects or non-living objects, everything we see through our eyes. And though we may feel things, touch things, people, we talk with other people, we enjoy with them, we share knowledge with them, we touch this and we identify. So this is what this object is all about. So this person is in this shape and everything. And though we may go to many places and find everything and see everything, but that does not give a fulfillment of seeing this beautiful world. Touching and interacting with people and enjoying things with feelings, while going to a place, touching a leaf and just feeling it, that is different. But those things, that alone does not make a fulfilled life or a fulfillment of seeing this beautiful world. So we see many people in railway stations, in bus stations, and in near the temple area, outside of church, people used to be there, and outside of mosque, in many functions, and outside of the marriage hall, many places we can see a lot of people with many disabilities in their bodies. So we see a lot of people who have different issues. So without legs, a person would be sitting there. So without hands, a person would be there. Without fingers, a person would be there. So a mute person, a deaf, a person who got fractured, and a person who got accident and have no hope in his life and no one to rescue him. He comes and sits and asks money to the passerbys, people who go here and there. So we, the people of God, need to respect all these people, right? Just because they lack something in their body, we cannot mock them, we cannot use unparliamentary words against them, so, or just mock at their disabilities and things. Because they too are God's people, and they are also created in the image of God. So God created us as well as them. He created them as well as us. So they are created in the image of God. So we have no rights to comment on their disabilities or whatever things that they suffer physically or emotionally, anything. So we should never call them as disabled people. You know this fact? You know this? We have no rights to call such people as disabled people. So that's not the right way to address them. Such people are not disabled people, but they are differently abled people. So that's the term that we should use. So hereafter, just take it to your heart. Whenever you see a person, you should never call him as, or you should never address that person to your friend or to the other person as he is a disabled person. No, he is not disabled person. He is differently abled person. So they are not people who cannot do things, but they do things in a different way. So whatever things you do in a different way, they do the same thing in another manner, in another way. So all these things we see are fine, but such people can see, right? People who have no legs, he has eyes, he can see. People who do not have hands, the part below his hip won't be there. And a mute, a deaf. These people, of course, we cannot tell that these people are okay, better. But they too suffer a lot, and they too have a great worse situation. But these people can see with their eyes, right? Though they have difficulty, they at least have an eye to see this tangible world, to look who is passing by, who is putting the money, who is snatching away the money. Because in today's time, many people, what they do is, instead of giving and helping them, they come near to them and pick whatever the things that they get in their hands, and they just run away. So these people who are differently able people, these people can at least see what is going on around them. So who is passing by here, what train or what bus and what kid is passing here, so is playing and something like that. So they can see this world, they can watch people, things, and look at this tangible real world. These differently abled people have difficulties, of course, but they can see the reality. But think of a person who is blind. How can he relate to this world? So without an eye, it is difficult to function his daily routine. So these people, they know where they have kept something. I mean, I'm talking about the people who are not blind. They know where the things are. So if the person who is helping them are not near them, they themselves know the place, and they can easily find some people who are passing, and they can tell, come here please, and can you take this, it is in this shelf or this place. But think of a blind person, how does he communicate, or how does he remember the place where he kept something, or a place where he needs to go? He always is dependent on someone, whether in asking address, so he cannot go by his own. So he needs to ask, he needs to double check the people. So many difficulties these people face. So an eye is the window of the body. The Bible tells it. Our eyes are the window of a body. We read in the Bible this line. So eye is the window. It sees things, it observes things, all colors, shapes, and people, place, etc. So though people have difficulties with the other parts of their body, but a person who is blind faces worse challenges than all these other people. So, for an example, let's take a stone which is being put on the roadside. So, many people pass by, they don't care about what is lying, they just go. And a blind person is walking on the road. He finds the road very freely, but he thinks that nothing is between his path. So he is just walking. As he is walking and taking his steps, he just got hit in a stone or in a rock, something that is in between his way, and he falls down and gets hurt. Or just think of a blind person crossing a road. So it is very much difficult for them to function their lives on their own. So today we will look at a person's life who is similar to what we just now spoke. So when we don't have a physical eye, we lack many things and we face hurdles and challenges much in life. But what if a person got an eye, a physical eye, but his spiritual eyes are blind? What if a person, his body, his parts is very much good, healthy, and his eyes are very much good, but his spiritual eyes are blind? So a person who is spiritually blind is the worst of all. So all this time we saw about differently abled people and about all the blind people and people who suffer with difficulties. A spiritually blind person his situation is worse than all of these differently abled people's life. So his life gets worse and worse day by day. A spiritually blind person, he faces spiritual challenges, spiritual downfalls, and stumbling, and hurts, and hurdles, and obstacles, many other things he faces daily. So compared to a physical blind person, a spiritually blind person faces great and worse challenge in his life. So that won't be good for our lives when our spiritual lives are closed. It won't be beneficial for our spiritual journey. So from the Bible we can see this man who is a person who faced all kinds of challenges in his life. Not throughout the life, but at a particular point of time he faced a great challenge. And what are the things that happen in his life that we will just meditate. Let us turn our Bibles to 2 Kings chapter 6 verse 14 to 17. 2 Kings chapter 6 verse 14 to 17. I will read it for you. Verse 14. Then he sent horses and chariots and a strong force there. They went by night and surrounded the city. Verse 15. When the servant of the man of God got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. "Oh no, my lord, what shall we do?" the servant asked. "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." Verse 17. And Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. So verse 14, first verse, it says, then he sent horses and chariots and a strong force there. They went by night and surrounded the city. So before we understand this passage, we need to look at what had happened before this. So in most of my sermon, I used to tell this because only when we look at the previous things, previous chapters and previous verses, and only then we will be able to get a good clarity in the current passage that we are focusing. So let us look at the background of this incident from verse 8 of the same chapter till 13. We see king of Aram. He is a king of Aram. He was war with Israel, with people of God. So he plans his schemes against the people of God, against God's anointed king. So he tells his officers, I will set up my camp in such and such place. So all the things, all the plans he is telling to his officers. So we also find the man of God, Elisha here. Elisha was the servant of the great man, the great prophet of Elijah, who was taken up into the heaven. So after Elisha continued the ministry. So he is now this man of God in verse 6. This Elisha received the message from God. So the verse does not tell that he literally received. So God was literally coming down from heaven and he was talking and he was revealing all the schemes and plans to Elisha. But he was a prophet and he receives or he gets dream or the word of God or spirit of God. Anyhow it comes to, the message comes to him from God. So this Elisha received the message from God regarding the plans and schemes of the king of Aram. This Elisha now sent word to the king of Israel. He warns him, telling them, don't go there. So whatever the place which was all set to go by this king of Israel, the man of God, stopped him. So God revealed Elisha all the plans that the king of Aram schemed against the king of Israel to kill him. He warns him, don't go there to that place, or don't go here to this place. So now king of Israel was alerted and took his stand and checked the places. So whatever places that Elisha told the king of Israel not to go, the king also checked the place frequently. So is that okay? Is that fine? So is there any trap for me? Or is there the king of Aram hiding in any place? So he also checked there. So many times this man of God, Elisha, warned and instructed Israel's king. So the king escaped every time. The king of Israel escaped every time. Each and every time the king of Aram planned something, king of Israel, through prophet Elisha, escaped each and every trap and every trouble and every wicked scheme that king of Aram had planned. So king of Aram was confused at a particular state because all his plans are not working for him. So he doubted his soldiers and his officers, and he thought that someone in my troop, in my army, is just leaking all the secrets that I speak among them. So there is some black sheep among us, and he is informing everything to king of Israel. That is why this king of Israel is escaping from my trap, from my plans each and every time. So he doubts his soldiers, officers. So every time he puts a great plan, it becomes failure for him. So he asked, who among us is for the king of Israel? The king of Aram asked his own soldiers, his officers, telling them, who is on the side of king of Israel? Because whatever I do, he's finding out. But one person out of his troop, his officers, he came forward and he told one thing. No one of us, king of Aram, there is no person among us who is for the king of Israel, who leaks the plans that use king. There is no person who is carrying the plans and telling the king, but Elisha, the prophet who is in Israel. So, whatever you speak in your bedroom, this man of God, Elisha, finds out. So, whatever you speak in secret, he reveals it openly. So, even the very smallest thing that you speak within the walls, it reaches this man of God, this Elisha. So, it is not we who are leaking the plans, it is Elisha, a prophet who is in Israel. That person is the cause of all these change of plans. King of Aram, just later what he did is, he commands his officers to capture this man of God from Dothan. So a message comes to this king of Aram that this Elisha, the man of God, the prophet of God, he is in this place, Dothan. So that news reached king of Aram, and he commands his officers, you better take all the things and you capture him. So now the army of the king of Aram, the horses, the soldiers, the officers came to the place Dothan. Now we will look what happened after this. So 2 Kings chapter 6, the same chapter, verse 14. I will read it once again. Then he sent horses and chariots and a strong force there. They went by night and surrounded the city. King of Aram sent horses and chariots and strong forces to Dothan, the place where the man of God is. So see, he sent horses, chariots, strong forces. So why did he send all these things? Is because to capture this man of God, Elisha. That too, see, Elisha, is a man of God. So catching a man of God with all these strong forces. So it looks something funny here, like capturing a single man, this Elisha, the man of God. For one person, this king of Aram sent horses, in plural, many horses, chariots, plural, many chariots, strong forces, so not singular, it's plural. So many horses, many chariots, and many strong forces he sent to capture this one single person, Elisha. So at what time they arrived there? At what time, what the Bible tells us, at what time the horses, chariots and the strong forces arrived there to capture Elisha? The verse tells that by night they came. They finally surrounded the city and set out to catch Elisha. They must have noticed what this Elisha must be doing and noted all his steps. What will this fellow do after this? They have kept a close watch on the house of Elisha. They could have probably. And they could have kept a deep notice on this person, Elisha. What comes inside of his area, what comes inside of his place in his home, and what is going out of his place. They must have mustered their troops, and they would have asked the people who go in and come out of the house of Elisha. Probably could have happened. So they must have noticed Elisha and must be doing all things for the benefit of for their king of Aram. So every soldier was on their mark. So they were ready to capture this man, Elisha. Verse 15, we read, when the servant of the man of God got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots have surrounded the city. Oh no, my lord, what shall we do? The servant asked. Here we see the servant of the man of God. The servant of the man of God. I strongly believe that this servant of the man of God, he is not KSC, the person who went after Naaman and received all the cloths and gifts from him, and the leprosy just continued from Naaman to this KSC. This KSC was the former servant of the man of God Elisha. So I strongly believe that this servant of God, which is in verse 15, is not KSC. So he was no longer called Elisha's servant after that. So I believe that another servant was with this man of God, Elisha. So what did this fellow do? This servant do? The servant of the man of God, he got up from his sleep. He woke up from his sleep, went out of the house very early in the morning the next day. Why did he got up and went out? So, please answer. Why did this servant of man of God got up early in the morning and went out by very early he went out of his house? So what is the reason? What could be the reason? So did he have any 5 o'clock morning prayer? So was he going to conduct a 6 o'clock morning service? So were there any urgent ministry at that early time, the early morning time? So there were no morning prayers, and he was not going for an urgent meeting or anything. I don't think so that he went for all these things, but the reason could be that the servant of Elisha could have heard the news about the soldiers, about the army and the forces, right? So some news could have come to his ears. He would have got that, so king of Aram has secretly sent his soldiers and other things. So they have stationed in this and this place. All he has brought in is a strong force and chariots and horses. So everyone is ready. By tomorrow morning something will happen. So some news about the king of Aram and his troops that he sent would have probably be heard by this person. So we see the reason could be that could be the reason. So this is why this person, the servant of Elisha, went early in the morning. So he had no good sleep. So after hearing that this person is coming to this place and he has stationed in this place, his heart would be beating faster, and after hearing whatever things that he received from the mediums that he got, he would have not got any good sleep, right? So no proper sleep for his eyes, no peaceful sleep for this servant. So the before day, he must be very much afraid and terrible. I think that at the sunset time, setting of sun, at that evening or a night time, this news would have come into the servant's ears. That is why at night time this servant did not go to the place. Very early in the morning, he woke up from his place and he went and reached there. To look at what will happen to this master, to his master Elisha, and whatever things that he told, let us look. After looking at all these things, after looking at the horses, the strong forces, the chariots, and all the military, this person, looking at all these things, he was frightened and terrified in his heart, and he saw everything. And what would have been happened there is that this servant must be running from that place after seeing something. So when we will be in a small young age, childhood, so suddenly an Omni or any car passes, what happens to us? We would have seen many cartoons and many Disney movies and other things. As soon as some car door opens, what we expect? Some kidnapping is about to happen. Someone is going to kidnap someone or some child or something. So after we see several things, or a person who is very rugged in look and he is just waiting, and maybe he would have been a good person also. But his look and his car and his posture and all the other things, what we tend to look at, we will be frightened and we will be running back. Or else just take a dog. We will be going like a warrior, and if you are a dog fearer, it's not God fearer, it's dog fearer. And once you enter a street to your friend's home, and as soon as you are about to enter your home, your friend's home, and you see 2 dogs or 3 dogs surrounding you, what happens? Immediately we will shout, or else if chance, we will run back immediately. So this make every little life, even practical things, and apply it to this verse. So just the verse does not tell us that the servant of Elisha ran back, he was afraid, he was terrified. We need to put our experience and whatever things that we have learned, and we must apply. So this is how he must have come from seeing all these things. So this servant must be running back to his master Elisha. He literally saw all of them, the things that were set against for this man of God, and should have had run, and he would have shouted aloud, or secretly he would have run and come to his master and told. So what he told to his master is that, "Oh no, my lord, what shall we do?" Verse 15 it says. So master in Hebrew is Adonai. Here the word is Adoni. It says master. Both Adonai and Adoni, it refers to master. It not just refers to God, but people of the Hebrew people, the Jewish people, use this Adoni or Adonai to address their master, the people who are above them. So this person running back from what he saw, he tells, "Oh no, my master, my Adoni, master, what shall we do now? Because all have come from king of Aram, so we are caught now. And definitely this troop is going to hunt us. So very well they have schemed, they have stationed in good proper places so that we won't be running anywhere else. We won't be able to run anywhere else. So they will hunt us down and they are going to take our lives. So no escape from all the great powers that has been stationed." Verse 16 we read, "Do not be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." So once again I will read this. It's a very good statement of the man of God. "Do not be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." See the response of the man of God. See how cool he is. He's telling one word. He's not taking a long sermon. "My servant, you should not do this," and preaching a long sermon to his servant, but he tells just one word: "Don't be afraid." So why do you get panic by looking at all these things? Be normal, calm down. So look at the faith of Elisha the prophet. So he was surrounded by the horses, the chariots, the soldiers, officers, the strong forces. But casually he answers his servant. So how many of you have watched cricket? How many of you like cricket? Cricket, you like? How many of you like cricket? No watching, only gospel channels. So when we watch the Chennai Super Kings IPL or India match, while Dhoni was a captain of India, what did he do in all the matches? Whether win or lose, what his actions and response were? He was always cool. That's why he was called Captain Cool also. So it doesn't matter IPL or an ODI or a test, he will always remain calm. He won't show any expression in his face much. That can be seen in Elijah's words. This person is frightened. All the sweats have been poured out in his body, the servant's body. His words are stammering and his legs are shivering. He is not normal. He comes and tells that, "Oh master, what we shall do now?" Everyone is surrounded. And he comes up coolly and he's telling, "Don't be afraid." That's it. So look at the faith of Elisha. That's the important thing that we will be learning from his life. Casually he deals. So he also furtherly tells his servant that those who are with us are more than those who are with them. So look at the faith element. I look at the words of Elisha. So those who are with us are more than those who are with them. Elisha had only one servant after KRC. He is now telling those who are with us. There were no one behind him. There were no support in his life. I mean, to guard Elisha. Only two people were standing there, Elisha and his servant. And this man of God is telling those who are with us are more than the people who are with them. So verse 17 it says, "And Elisha prayed, 'Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see.' Then the Lord opened the eyes of the servant, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha." So look at the prayer. He did not condemn his servant, did not warn his servant. He prays for his servant. Look at the prayer of Elisha. "Lord, open the eyes of this servant, this man who is with me, so he may see." So the servant of Elisha, so Elisha was Adonai to the servant. But Elisha had an Adonai who is his God. Look at the response of the servant. He is fearing and coming and telling his master. But Elisha, the man of God, how he responds to his master. He prays that, "Lord, open the eyes of this person." So God, what he did is, he opened the servant's eyes. Not just, don't take this literally. Not that he was sleeping or he was just closing his eyes and God was just placing his hands and this opening. God opened the eyes of the servant of Elisha. What he saw is that he looked, the servant who was afraid, after God opened his eyes, he looked and saw hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. Till then, he saw king's horse. This servant would have seen all the horses and the chariots and the officers of king of Israel. And now he has just now saw this, the chariots and the horses of the king of Aram. So this worldly horses and the chariots and other things he saw till now. But after God opened his eyes, what he sees is that he saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha, the man of God. So now he saw God's horse and chariots. And even now you should not take this literal. God's horses is not that he is just tending some horses, having some horses in heaven, and he has some chariots. Whenever he is bored or whenever he wants to wage war, he takes his horse. No. In the vision, or literally, in his spiritual eyes, this servant of God sees a great God's army above all these worldly armies. His eyes were open, and before that, we see how much afraid he was. The verse does not tell that, okay, then the servant's fear left him and all the other things. But I believe that after God opening his eyes, the eyes of the servant, the spiritual eyes were open, and he saw God's army on behalf of Elisha, the great man. So what we learn from 2 Kings chapter 6 verse 14 till 17 is that servant of Elisha before and after. So just place yourselves in the place of the servant, how he was afraid. So just before we saw that in the beginning we saw, an eye is the most important thing in a body. Though we may find difficulties and we may have challenges with the other part of bodies, and people who are differently able people have so many difficulties, but a person who is blind suffers a lot other than all these people. So servant of God and us, just compare that in your mind. His spiritual eyes were closed. His spiritual eyes were blind. His eyes of faith were blind. So we come to realize that how much important it is to have our spiritual eyes open. People who are good physically, most of them, their spiritual eyes are blind. So that's the case in today's scenario. We see a lot of Christians, followers of Christ, they go to church regularly, they read scriptures regularly, and they are very much attached to the Word of God, and they do whatever things God has instructed them, going to Sunday service, going to this prayer and that prayer, everything. Following God is fine, but without the eyes of spiritual eyes getting open, though we may read and we may be regular to the church, we may find difficulty while challenges are ahead of us. So here we can learn the importance of having the spiritual eyes being open. It is very much important for us, for me as well as for you, to have our spiritual eyes get open. So only God can open it. You cannot try it on your own. You cannot do it on your own. So nobody else can, your mother and father or your brother, sister, they cannot help you to open your spiritual eyes. It is you, and it is between you and God. When you earnestly seek God, He immediately opens. It does not, the verse does not tell us that after Elisha praying to God, open the eyes of the servant, after 2 days he opened. No, immediately the eyes of the servant got open, and he saw wonderful thing. And he saw chariots of fire, God's army on behalf of Elisha. So the title of today's message is The Eye Opener. The Eye Opener. So we have little time, we have just 10 minutes. So this person's life, the servant, that person's life was fearful, he was trembling, he was terrible. And the moment when God opened his eyes, his spiritual eyes, I believe that his life would have changed completely. He, that servant of the man of God, his faith would have increased in his life. So after that, whatever things that Elisha would have faced in his life, or he would have faced in his personal life, this person could have got an idea that, okay, God's army, the God of Israel, his army itself is with me, so why do I fear for the things that are ahead of me? So just keep this in your mind. To get rid of the fear that we are into, God must open our eyes. So, like Elisha, we need to be. So some people around here, we may be in the place of Elisha, already eyes open, and you may be walking in the good paths and in good faith, fine. But people who are in the condition of this servant of Elisha, though he had physical eye, he was also traveling along with Elisha, right? In verse 5, we see Naaman healed of leprosy. And after that, I believe that Naaman left Elisha. So the final verse tells that then Gehazi went from Elisha's presence and his skin was leprous, which means he left Elisha. And this new fellow, the servant, followed Elisha. In verse 6, at the beginning of the chapter, it says the axe fell into the water, and the axe which was fell inside the water, it was floating with Elisha's miracle that God done through Elisha. So this servant of God would have seen, servant of Elisha would have seen all these things, even though he saw many wonders and signs and traveled along with Elisha, he forgot to realize that people, the army with Elisha was greater and powerful than the army that king of Aram sent. So today, let us ask God that, Lord, if just you alone know in which condition you are there. So if your eyes are blind, your spiritual eyes are blind, just ask God, let us close eyes. Ask God, Lord, open my spiritual eyes, Lord, so that I can see. Lord, you are always on my side, Lord. And you have always been with me in all my battles, in all my struggles, in all my obstacles. You have always given your great army on behalf of me, Lord. You are going to fight, and you are going to, Lord, give me victory. But at some point of time, I get confused and I lack faith in many parts of my life. Lord, just open your mouth and ask, Lord. But you are the only one who can able to open my spiritual eyes, Lord. When we ask God earnestly, He will never refuse. He will immediately come for aid and help.